other alter the other alternatives to the four-year degree. So what we use the word college in the U.S. to talk about 4 and 2-year degrees. Um, but this question about who needs college anymore is it's a very sensitive topic in the halls of academia right now in the U.S. But it's also very much on the minds that the universities they really have to diversify their offerings in order to survive. So let me just start by sharing. Oops, my slides are not. There we go. Let me just start by sharing a historical perspective about enrollment in the U.S., because this is part of why universities and colleges are coming to the table to say, okay, let's look at micro-credentials, because their enrollments have dropped pretty considerably. In the community college space, which is the 2-year colleges here, they have dropped by 37% in the since 2010, when we had the Great Recession. I will say, I should add that just in the last year, the early numbers that we're getting suggest that enrollment is trending back up a little bit. But when you look at the nature of that demand, the nature of the enrollment that we're seeing in college, the growth areas tend to be certificate enrollment, which is fueled by micro-credentials, and then this other non-credit enrollment is also forms of enrollment that are short-term usually and not for credit, which often means that learners are having to pay out of their pocket, and that's one of the big concerns in the U.S. is that we're still funding, really we're only funding the degree, and so many people are asking for other forms of learning. And then high school, I should just have a quick note about high school dual enrollment. This is where learners who are in secondary school are allowed to take college courses, and this is really surging in the U.S. And for a variety of reasons. But a lot of innovators right now are thinking, how can we use micro-credentials to capture that market that's in secondary school and trying to become certified in different fields. So I thought I would summarize, I talk about all of these in my book, but I thought I would summarize the alternatives that are gaining traction in the US and those that maybe haven't found ways to scale. And again, I think this is because of the funding environment, but also in the case of apprenticeships, for example, in the US, we don't have the employer support because we don't have the same structures around employer associations or guilds, or it's hard for employers to come together and sort of do this as a group. That's also that disassociation of employers and the fact that most employers are small employers in the US is also hurting the micro-credential movement. And we'll get to that in a second if we have time. But I wanted to focus, or at least give you, in our very short time here, one particular strategy that colleges are using, community colleges mostly, are using with micro-credentials. And this is really being driven by an organization that I founded, which is partly what led me to write the book, the Education Design Lab. We're trying to build up a new model of a short-term program that colleges offer, universities offer, called micro pathways. And they're basically a set of 2 to 3 micro-credentials that a learner can earn in 1 year or less, that can stack, that several of these put together could stack to a degree, but they don't have to, so that you have earnings power directly coming right into the workforce after 6 months, not having to wait for an entire degree. And this is resonating very much in the current climate in the US. I have one example, which I know this looks complicated. Hopefully you can see it from where you're sitting, but if not, let me just explain that in Colorado, one of our western states, in the rural areas, there were not enough behavioral health specialists, and and there were not enough people coming into the mental health field because all of the jobs required not only a degree, a university degree, but also a master's degree. And so, and yet the jobs were paying, $20 an hour coming out, which even in rural areas, just, with that people were not willing to take on the debt, which in our country, most most degrees require, a significant outlay of your own personal money. And so we've used micro pathways to create, actually working with industry and the government regulators, to create entire new job roles that don't require any degree. And we're using micro credentials to do this. And so there's a new role called patient navigator, another role called case manager, which does require the first degree, but the patient navigator doesn't require any degree. And these are ways to create like triage roles to alleviate the missing workforce in behavioral health in America, which has really exacerbated since COVID. And so, in this is, I think, one of my favorite examples of how micro-credentials are being used to really solve, thorny workforce problems. And we can talk about that in the Q&A. So this is the spread of industries that are using micro pathways in our country. They're, really, I'd say that tech and healthcare and manufacturing are the three industries that are using them the most. And I can give the website at the end where you can see how to see. You can see a lot of the micro pathways that have been created. Excuse me. The other really interesting thing, we are losing, as are many European countries, right? The number of young people coming into the university system is dropping. Excuse me. And so, colleges, universities are very interested in attracting. How do we attract older students who might be reskilling, particularly as we require workers to be more agile. And what's interesting is there's a pretty even spread across the age groups of who is coming to community colleges to earn these micro credentials and micro pathways. And I thought I would share that spread with you. Excuse me. So the bottom line, I would say, of my book in terms of the design principles, it's based on a human-centered design approach, is that that university needs a stepladder approach that is basically fueled on micro credentials, that it becomes a stepladder where you can come in and out of university, of institutions, and build your earnings power. In our country, because most people are paying for university and because it is 4 years, we have something like 60 to 65% of learners are working while they're at university. And so they're working anyway. And the problem is they're working at low wage jobs that are not related to their careers. And so this has been a really interesting, I think, wake up call for people to say, we need to think about how do we help people get experience in their field, and the stepladder approach is one way to do that. But there are too few rungs on the ladder right now where all the players agree on what skills are required. So one of my pushes in the book is what I call a skills genome, which I think you're doing a better job in Europe of getting here because there's more coordination. We don't have even within these fields that I list. So my light rings or rungs are areas where there are some certifications, industry certifications, where it's really clear what mastery you need for what roles. And my orange areas or orange circles are the ones where they're not. And this is a fairly of the envelope view of this, but I'm trying to push the argument that we need more industry certifications across more job roles. And last point, we also need them across what we're in the US trying to move to the term durable skills rather than soft skills, but across these skills that employers and the World Economic Forum, OECD all tell us are the top skills year after year on a global level that employers care about. And yet we have not made, my organization's trying, but we have not made enough progress to credentialize or micro-credentialize the certification of critical thinking, of collaboration, of creative problem solving, of empathy. And this is something that a lot of folks are talking about. And we're hoping to make more progress on that. We have a project at the lab called X Credit, where we're trying to help people get credentialed for soft skills or durable skills based on work experience or life experience that they have. So, Leo, I think I will stop there. I have these are ways to be in touch with me. These are the organizations that I'm involved with, and I think you can from Europe buy my book on Amazon or Who Needs College Anymore is the book's website. So I will stop there, and hopefully you were able to see the slides, and if not, I can explain any of them to you.